Hey everybody, before we get started, I just remind you this episode is brought to you by our patrons like Adam the Harp, Icon Comics, Okay Assuming, Architect 10 Blackest the G, Carlos, Dragon, Ferris, Jeremy Vasquez, Jonathan Sandoval, Legendary Boss Hunter, Liam Kessler, Richard Raptor, Rogue Robin, Charvor, Shiny P, Sun Guy named Bob, Siren23, and Varian the Crow. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon and get access to episodes early, and that's what really helps out. Thank you for your support, everybody.
Space Dandy. He's a dandy guy in space.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk FGO 110, the show where we let you know if you want to roll that 5-star. Kept you waiting, huh? I mean, it's true. There's a lot of events happening and not a lot of new servants for a while since summer, so hopefully we'll have a good time. Anyway, we're back with a new profile. We're going to be talking about Space Ishtar today. She's an Ishtar in space. That's why we did the special intro. As per the usual, we will break this down into several segments. We will first talk about a character's real-life history and/or folklore, then their lore in Fate, with capital letters, and then we will break down their mechanics. We'll talk about mats and rarity, how frequent their rate-ups are, not their star rarity. I don't do the 4-star ones anymore other than the summer stuff, but that was done in the past, so it's important to let everybody know. Hope you enjoyed the retro thumbnail. I don't really have any more for this intro bit, so let's jump on in to the history, because boy, guys, boy howdy. Okay, so to begin on history, I'm going to preface all of this by saying that Ishtar, as she likes to be called, or possibly Shishtar, or sometimes Ishtar Ashtarte, or Ishtar Astartes, or Ashtoreth, whatever. Yeah, we're starting there. She's kind of a triple goddess character, but not really, because all the deities she's linked to can be said to have a similar origin. Because we are looking at multiple layers of cultural filtering and their own interpretations of a similar deity through different lenses of history, location, etc., we're going to be heavily simplifying things, okay? So there's a deep, deep, dark hole for you to fall in on this one. I know, I looked into it, but for the sake of your sanity and mine, we're not going to go that far, okay? So, Astarte is a Phoenician/Canaanite goddess of love and war, often depicted as naked among lions and associated with healing and hunting. She has a close relationship with another female war deity, Anat, who you may also have heard of, and she's a whole separate story of multicultural myths and interpretations, right? Like, there's even more stuff about Anat separate from Astarte, except when they're not separate. Random side fact to get this train rolling, Anat may actually have been a thematic inspiration for Athena. She was a fierce war goddess who was simultaneously a maiden and brought forth many offspring. Really interesting how this stuff gets started. Speaking of things getting started, but wait, there's more. Astarte is linguistically linked to Ishtar, the Mesopotamian goddess of love and war, queen of heaven, and goddess associated with the evening star, aka Venus. In some cities, in these cultures, their names were interchangeable. Yeah. So basically, they're the same goddess. But wait! Ishtar's older name in the original Sumerian was Innana. Ishtar was her name to the lesser Mesopotamian cultures, like the Babylonians. Hence why FGO uses Ishtar, by the way, if you've never understood that. It's because Nasu really likes Babylonia, I guess. The etymological lines also just keep getting more confusing. It's not entirely clear if Astarte was associated with the evening star. She has a lot of crescent moon symbolism from what I've seen. But the Phoenicians traveled to the island of Cyprus and appeared to have syncretized her with a local deity who was probably adopted into the mainstream Greek pantheon as Aphrodite during the Greek Dark Age. We have some, Mycenaean Greece old texts for a lot of gods and goddesses. There doesn't appear to be an origin at that point for Aphrodite, but she shows up later in, the Iliad period of Greek history outside of the Dark Age, so there's probably some sort of introduction going on there. Scholars are unclear of her, I am unclear. Now, the Romans definitively doubled down on this possible connection. They directly syncretized Aphrodite, aka Venus, to them with Astarte, because they went out of their way to go places and say, oh, hey, that goddess is like our goddess. Dunzo. So even if Astarte wasn't associated with Venus, when the Romans come along, very much the Venus. Also, by the way, hilariously, there's another comparison here, because Astarte, either as it was a direct origin or was deliberately syncretized with, I'm going to assume Tanit, but possibly Tanit, Tanish, Tanith, who knows, a major goddess of Carthage, one of the major goddesses of Carthage, and the Romans hated enemies. That's right, Astarte was also a Punic goddess, in addition to being Venus, the goddess who is in some ways responsible for the historical founding of Rome, before you get to Romulus and Remus later. We need a trip, guys. So, gosh, we just keep falling down the etymology hole. It goes deeper and deeper. I hope you guys are enjoying my colored string, because I got more stuff to roll out. The name Ashtoreth used for her final form, at least as of current translations. Obviously, the event's not out yet, so I can't see exactly what they're doing. They went with the spelling of Ashtart, even though I think it's probably still pronounced Ashtarte. And the A sound definitely is followed by a sh sound, I think. But the Ashtoreth name is the name of Astarte used in the Hebrew Bible. It was used to refer to foreign goddesses, both as Astarte directly and also just as a plural, as a generic heathen goddess. It was generally not used positively in that context either. This is why you may have heard the name Astaroth or Ashtoreth, or many other combinations of that name. This is a usually male demon depicted in Kabbalah and Christian demonology, a Duke of Hell, and is one of the many demons described in the Lesser Key of Solomon. Yeah, an Ars Goetia demon. I don't know if that comes up in the event, but it should, because, come on. Now, this demonization seems to be a major part of why Ishtar is categorized as an Avenger. Remember, kids, degrading divine spirits to demons and mortals makes them angry. So, if you've been following FGO or pop culture for a while, you're probably familiar with a lot of the major Ishtar myths, so I won't regurgitate them in this video. Ishtar has commented on them several times in the actual story of FGO and her interludes, etc. Now, Astarte herself is part of a couple of big old myths on her own, which we will probably also not be deep diving in, because I am not super familiar with the cultural context, but I can mention them. She is a major ally to the character in the Ugaritic's Baal cycle, or possibly Baal. There's a hyphen in this, but I've also heard it just Baal. She's a major character along with Anat. There's also some myths of her as a huntress and as kind of a protagonist to some of these stories as well. By the way, another fun syncretism fact, because Baal, who was a storm god, was associated with Set in Egyptian mythology, because he was a storm god, both Astarte and Anat were imported to Egypt as well. They were associated with Set, and Astarte retains her imagery as a war goddess and is specifically associated with horses and chariots because they appeared late to Egypt. And Egypt is also, for some reason, a major source of our Bronze Age depictions of Astarte. Astarte, however you want to say it. I don't think it matters. The original culture is dead. Don't use that language anymore, so figure it out. But yeah, this is just a weird situation of like, hey, these characters are three separate characters, but also they're one character, and they're all the same, and their names all go the same place, and they all have the same associations. So we've made our etymological conspiracy web, and now let's talk about how that's all wrong, because Space Ishtar is from space. So let's briefly talk about the Servant universe. We can't really drill down super deep because it's a joke. It started as an association with an April Fool's joke, and it's kind of spiraled from there. So we don't have a lot of the details. But we do have some of the details, and basically the Servant universe is a parallel timeline. It's a separate world line where all humans have basically become servants, and there are only 7 human masters remaining in existence. So it's a universe populated mostly by servants. Why? How? Who the fuck knows? Does anybody care? I don't know. Now, this may have something to do with the fact that its other name is the Shining Blue Galaxy, also translated some places as the Sapphire Galaxy, because this universe is exceptionally blue because it contains high volumes of ether, the magical energy of the Age of Gods, which, if you'll recall from a couple of story events in Part 1, and occasionally in Part 2, I think, is bad for modern humans. You have to wear special protection or you'll melt or something. So, basically, Space Ishtar is not a pseudo-servant properly. She is effectively the Servant Universe's version of Rintosika, who is Ishtar Astarte because she's a servant, not a human. There's no regular Rin in the Servant Universe because it's full of servants. It's just Space Ishtar. Got me? And I've got conflicting reports on if she has the pseudo-servant trait or not. One wiki says one thing, one wiki says another. If somebody in the comments could confirm for me, I'd love to know. Why there are multiple Space Ishtars is very closely related to the plot of Saber Wars 2, so we won't get into it exactly, but it does relate to the fact that all 3 faces have the same origin, thus they are all summoned at once. This is in her normal-ass profile. It's not a spoiler if you get her. So, they're all the same goddess origin, just different faces of the goddess and plot stuff. It should be noted that while her profile makes all of the main syncretic connections, including name-dropping Anat, explaining why Space Ishtar has so much power, you'll see why I say this in mechanics later, Nasu completely sidesteps the connection to Aphrodite. This is because Nasu has his own little pet world building involving the Greek gods, so that connection is ignored completely in order to keep them internally consistent, and more on their lore will come up at later points. We do have this whole lost belt associated with them coming up, so gee, I wonder if something will come up. But yeah, if you've ever wondered why that connection isn't made, even though quite a few people have realized and made videos about the fact that Aphrodite, aka Venus, is just Astarte, is just Ishtar, is just Innana, is just some Proto-Indo-European sky goddess who might also be the origin for Ereshkigal, oh my god, the conspiracy web, it keeps going. But FGO doesn't, and that's why. Ashtoreth is also tied to the deeper lore of the Servant universe. There was apparently some form of the universe before humans transcended to servants, and in that version of the universe, she was worshipped as a goddess on Venus. No, not of Venus, on Venus. Venusian aliens or something. This technically makes her an alien from more space, but is not relevant. She's an Avenger, not a foreigner. I don't even know why they wanted to do this. I don't know. Maybe Nasu likes ancient aliens. So, Space Ishtar was a major character in this year's Battle in New York event. It is clarified that she is the same Space Ishtar, kind of, as the one who appears in Saber Wars 2. She is the Ishtar from the Servant universe, not the Chaldean one. But the intro call for Saber Wars 2 says, is this canon? I don't know. Maybe, yes, no, who cares? So, good luck with that. And obviously, she is a major character in Saber Wars 2, along with her other faces, and we will not delve any further on that point. But after, 10 minutes of crazy conspiracy theory, which, quite frankly, didn't get us a lot of anywhere other than establishing that this goddess is kind of important because she's replicated over and over throughout history, and she's associated with specific cultural myths to specific cultures, but there's way too many cultures to talk about all their cultural myths. Let's do something relaxing and concrete and talk about mechanics. Alright, after the cut, let's get cracking on those mechanics. So, S-Ishtar is a new SSR Avenger, with a stat spread that puts her at the highest HP but the lowest attack. Not that that matters very much with how most Avengers are built. But yes, she currently holds the records for those. So she is Quick, Arts, Buster, with fairly low hit counts, except extra, so her NP gain is decently high. Now, this is one of those unusual cases where we have to talk about her skills first, and the reasons for this will become apparent. Her first skill is kind of a variant on Charisma. It increases her own attack by 10 to 20% for 3 turns. And then it does for allies 20 to 30%. And also all other allies become immune to charm. That's handy. But the second skill is the key one. This one is the one that gives her 10 to 20% NP up for 1 time 3 turns. Pretty typical stuff. Gives her 1 hit of Invul for 3 turns. Hard defense is good. The 1 hit's a little rough, but you can use some flexibility. And also it changes her NP card type for 3 turns to the one of your choice. So yeah, that's the big one, okay? You can switch her NP card type with a buff and pick which one it is, and that lasts for 3 turns. So, pretty good flexibility. We'll talk more about that strategy later when we actually talk about her NP, but that's the reason why we had to start with her skills. And of course, because she's a Rin face, her final skill is a 30-50% battery, which has an 80% chance to give her a flat 20% to her Quick, Arts, and Buster. They're all separate chance buffs as far as I can tell, which lasts 3 turns. So, her NP is normally AoE Arts, and it always has the effect to give you plus 100% extra attack effectiveness for 1 turn. It also gives you increased NP damage for 3 turns based on overcharge, so this stacks pretty well with the skill that switches her NP card type. Other than that, it's not in my graphics package, but I will tell you, the NPs are all identical between card types, except what does change is the base damage multipliers and inherent card multipliers. So, her Quick version of her NP has a bigger multiplier, but Quick inherently does less damage. The Arts one has, middling damage, but better NP gen. The Buster one has the lowest multiplier because Buster has inherent damage multipliers, etc., etc., etc. But basically, this means you're guaranteed to clap decently strong no matter what, and you can adjust your NP damage for what support setup you have and do also whatever buffs on her third skill actually proc. You can, for instance, tab her battery, get the 50%, and then see what buffs actually land. 80% is a pretty decent chance to get all 3, but you might miss one and go, okay, I will now pick which NP I want to do based on what buffs I have. This means that Space Ishtar is very flexible, especially since as minimum she's going to be doing a lot of neutral damage most of the time. Just remember to aim for a Brave chain so you can make the most of her extra attack enhancement. It is not critical, but it can be helpful. We'll talk more about how she works with support later. And now, befitting a goddess and also an Avenger, she has a shitload of passives. She has Magic Resistance C, Independent Action C, Goddess Core A++, that's what I was talking about earlier when talking about how it's referenced explicitly in her profile, how she's connected all these goddesses. Avenger EX, Oblivion Correction A, and Self-Replenishment B. So, she does get a good crit mod inherently, though she has no necessary buffs for it, and she's very hard to debuff. Also, in addition to the fact that she has decent NP gain because of her low hit counts, she will gain NP quite well because she gets 3.5% per turn and has a much better on-hit regeneration. Very decent. So for CEs, this one is a bit tricky. Since she has a 50% battery, go with those CEs, the one that start you with 50% charge, and start with something like Golden Sumo or Howling Princess if you have them. Those are getting harder to come by if you haven't been in this game very long. And then, if you don't have those, flavor to the card is needed. Alright, so start with, just attack up or just NP up. But if you don't got those or you want to do something specific, then decide, okay, we'll go with an arts, her default is arts, okay, we'll go with a buster, I'll switch her to buster, etc. Raw NP damage or attack is best, because it's the most generic, but since you can switch hit, you can play the color coordination a little. You can work with the CEs you have, rather than the CEs which are implicitly good on this servant. I think this is why Space Ishtar is actually a well-known damage dealer in the game and very well off. She has a lot of card-agnostic buffs, and the fact that she can pivot her card type on her NP means you can do a lot to make her do well, though I believe the arts is the default best. This also means that Space Ishtar, like I said, is kind of support-agnostic too. You can throw her with Waver to have her immediately do 100% battery and completely free up that CE slot. Throw Black Grail on there if you want to get that big damage. Or you can stack her with whatever major players you have. Want to try and do NP BB chain and crit big? Throw Merlin in there. Her NP's only 3 hits, so I do not believe she can Scotty loop in any way, but the NP fire turn she will slap pretty hard, and she can regenerate a decent amount. Plus, she's got her own 50% battery, so if you double Scotty, you usually have a free battery left over on one of the 3 servants involved in that. You can blend Tamamos. Obviously, Castoria later will make her really good. I believe that Space Ishtar can arts loop if you want her to. But the golden value of this servant is just that she's so flexible. You can do a lot with her, and a lot of times you find yourself tailoring your team to what you got. She's the ultimate servant for that. Oh, you don't have good art CEs? Well, just play her like she's a buster servant. She's got 2 buster cards. You can work from there, you know? I think the only thing she's probably not optimal at is quick, because she's only got 1 quick card native. But still, you can make it work. You can make a character work with 2 quick cards, one of which is her NP. It's all up into what buffs you have. Now, for the extra stuff, as an Avenger, Space Ishtar is both not and is a pain to level up. So, she needs no statues to ascend, but does need 10 of 2 different mats each time. Now, that shouldn't be too painful. It's just 10, and some of the mats are older, but reactor cores are newer. They're about a year old at this point, so just be on the lookout for that. Now, the part where you're going to die and where I'm going to die is skills. Skills are semi-painful. No gems are required, which is a relief, but you do need 10, 12, 15 of increasingly rare materials, including 15 eggs per skill. That's what got a lot of people up in arms. And also 12 stakes per skill. Fuck me. God damn it, Rin. Why do you want so many nails? Sorry, it's a me problem. But yeah, there's no, complex to this. It's just, do you have the mats or not? Luckily, the eggs is, level 9, I think, isn't it? Yeah, it's the 9th refinement is eggs. The stakes is 5th, so that's going to be a problem. But 444 shouldn't be too hard for a lot of us. It's the higher levels that will get more and more punishing. And that's a shame, because she's got a 50% battery that I'm going to want to put to 10 immediately. Now, for banners, it's fairly straightforward. You have Saber Wars 2 and a Saber Wars 2 rerun. You also get an assortment of the Lucky Bag selections. She is a limited SSR. And, of course, being on Lucky Bags as an extra class, that means you have a decent shot at her at certain areas. But, of course, as a Rin face, she will almost assuredly get more reruns in the future. But for now, this is it. By the way, I wrote this before they announced that Eresh banner for FGO Grand Carnival. So, yeah, it completely is true. She'll just get more banners later, but we don't know when those are. And really, that's all I got. I wrote this last segment while very tired. But I think I covered the core things there. I hope you enjoyed this Wanted. It's been a little bit. We'll probably have a handful coming out for a slew of new stuff in the upcoming month, whatever. Probably the old rapid fire. We're going to need to do Saber Astolfo. I get to talk about Astolfo, guys. Super Orion, Europa. I think that's all the new 5 stars. Well, there's New Year's as well. That's going to be a fun one. Maybe I'll get Dallas to do that if he's speaking to me after 2 more months of progression. Anyway, that's what we got for Wanted today. It's time to get on out of here. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you liked it. If you have any comments, leave them down below. I do ask you to refrain from comments about how you're going to skip her, because that's not a productive part of the conversation. But if you have other comments, wish luck, wish other people luck, success, failure, whatever, leave in the comment section down below. You can also join our Discord. That link is, as always, in the video description and on our channel page. If you're new here, please subscribe to our channel to get more of these future videos as they come out, and to also get our regular weekly podcast, Let's Talk FGO, every week, talking about FGO, giving you the news, servant breakdowns, event reviews, strategies, news, all kinds of stuff. Check it out. Even if you're already subscribed, make sure to hit that bell for notifications so you'll always know when we post a video. I don't know exactly when this video is getting posted. So, watch out, kids. That's why you should ring that bell. If you want, you can also join our channel membership by clicking that button or link below. Get access to membership badges and emotes you can use in the comments. you can have a tyranny doot to celebrate your new Space Ishtar.
Mm-hmm.
But also, of course, like it said at the front of the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. You could have gotten this episode early and lots of other goodies, and it really helps us out and supports us. That is my outro. I hope to see you guys later this week for more Let's Talk FGO and for future Wanteds. If you did not see this week's Let's Talk FGO, make sure to go back and check it out. It has a funny joke about how they spelled Astarte's name in NA. And that's it. All right. See you guys. This is Ground Control to Major Tom. We're getting out of here.